Imagine a region in our galaxy where every particle seems charged with the sole purpose of destruction. In the so-called fatal zone of the Milky Way, lethal radiation, waves of stellar explosions, and the brutal force of black holes make this area a true killing machine. It's like a cosmic extermination field where any molecule that tries to form is instantly shattered. And while we're millions of light years away, it's almost frightening to think about what could happen if this zone were our neighbor. Curious to know why the galaxy itself keeps certain areas so deadly that life could never arise? Then get ready. We're about to unveil the cruelest secrets of our universe, the galaxy's death zone. Imagine an area of the galaxy where nothing blooms, where existence itself seems challenged every second. The so-called fatal zone is exactly this region, where conditions are so extreme that life, as we know it, would hardly have a chance to form, much less thrive. Think of it as a cosmic minefield, where lethal radiation and uncontrollable gravitational forces make the environment relentless. The fatal zone is a space where young, powerful stars play a central role, spreading radiation everywhere, creating a true space inferno. Here, conventional biology, the kind we see on Earth, would always be at risk of extinction before it even began. In practice, if Earth were located in this zone, our history would have ended much faster or may not have even begun. This area, which encompasses regions like the center of the Milky Way and the far ends of the galactic arms, is constantly bombarded by intense energy waves and chaotic stellar events. It's almost like being surrounded by cosmic fireworks, where the slightest spark could end everything. Venturing there would require superhuman endurance, a level of protection no known life possesses. It's the galaxy's zone where survival is not only a challenge, but an almost guaranteed impossibility. Deadly radiation in the spiral arms. The spiral arms of our galaxy are beautiful from afar, but up close, they harbor true radiation storms. These areas are filled with young stars which have the energy of newly born giants and are still in full activity. Each one emits an absurd amount of radiation that, combined with the action of supernovas, creates a far from welcoming environment. It's like trying to live next to a nuclear power plant that explodes every cycle. The radiation doses make any survival attempt a lost battle. The intense radiation of the galactic arms not only spans great distances, but also impacts everything it encounters. Imagine a planet trying to orbit one of these stars. Any form of life there would face severe mutations or simply vanish. If Earth were in this scenario, we would barely have an atmosphere, as the radiation would destroy any protective layer. It's therefore a territory where young stars and supernovas remind us of just how deadly the cosmos can be and make no effort to spare anyone. Chaos in the galactic bulge, the stellar storm. The galactic bulge is an area where the concept of peace simply does not exist. There, the density of stars is so absurd that it seems each one is vying for a tiny piece of space. In this stellar chaos, black holes lurk like invisible predators, always ready to swallow whatever is nearby. It's like being in the middle of a cosmic traffic jam where gravity is a runaway factor, pulling and pushing objects constantly. Trying to maintain any stable orbit would be a miracle, a constant struggle against forces that no known life could withstand. Being in the galactic bulge would literally be like a game of stellar Russian roulette. Any forming planet could be tossed from one side to another, destroying any attempt at stability. The gravitational intensity generated by so many stars and black holes in constant proximity is a recipe for chaos. Ultimately, this space is so hostile that it would be impossible to imagine the formation of an ecosystem that could last long. In the bulge, life would be an unwelcome visitor, disintegrated before it even took shape, the deadly center of the Milky Way. The heart of the Milky Way pulses with almost unimaginable energy. At its center, radiation and subatomic particles are so prevalent that they form an invisible cloud of lethality. It's no wonder that this galactic center, known as Sagittarius A, houses a massive black hole that engulfs everything around it. It would be like trying to live inside a lightning storm, with particles and radiation striking everything that dares to approach. In this scenario, any molecule or form of life would be wiped out before it even had a chance to settle. Surviving in the center of the Milky Way would mean facing a force that terrestrial biology cannot even begin to imagine. The radiation levels there are so extreme that they pierce magnetic shields, shattering atoms and preventing the formation of complex structures. If Earth were there, our cells wouldn't survive a single second. Science has already demonstrated that our genetics were not made for an environment with such violence, where high radiation is constant and relentless. This is the kind of place where life itself, as far as we can tell, could never take root. Explosive supernovas. Supernovas are fascinating spectacles to the eye, but for life, they are true cosmic executioners. When a massive star explodes in a supernova, it releases an amount of energy capable of destroying everything around it in a huge radius. In regions of the galaxy where supernovas occur frequently, life doesn't even have a chance to attempt anything. Imagine building a house in a place where volcanoes erupt daily. Destruction would be constant, and any start of development would be wiped off the map. Moreover, the energy released by a supernova doesn't stay only at the explosion site. It spreads, emitting intense radiation over surprising distances. If Earth were close to one of these regions, the very atmosphere would be stripped away like a blanket in a storm. Supernovas leave a trail of devastation that requires life to have both luck and a lot of distance to prosper. Thus, in areas where these explosions are frequent, life is more of an impossible dream than a reality. Black holes and neutron stars. Black holes and neutron stars are the silent villains of the cosmos, invisible to the naked eye, but with such an intense presence that their destructive power defies any concept of protection we know. A black hole can suck in all matter around it, and a neutron star, so compact it defies physics, generates magnetic fields and emits lethal radiation. Being near one of these bodies would be the equivalent of living in a lethal trap, where any mistake results in instant destruction. For a developing planet, proximity to a black hole or a neutron star is a premature end sentence. These objects can distort space-time, affecting orbits and altering gravitational fields, making stability a utopia. It's like being next to a destructive machine that never turns off. No chance for ecosystems, no reprieve for any attempt at life. The destructive influence of these bodies is a barrier for any form of life to have a chance to flourish. Neutrinos and cosmic radiation. Cosmic radiation is a true bombardment of energetic particles traveling through space, crossing everything in its path. And young stars are major sources of this radiation, which is further intensified by neutrinos, tiny, fast-moving particles that cross anything. This type of radiation is deadly to life as we know it, especially for organisms in development that have no defenses to fight it. Being in a region near these stars would be like inhabiting a zone constantly affected by radiation. If a planet with life were in a place like this, organisms would face constant mutations or even cellular disintegration. Neutrinos, almost invisible and difficult to detect, traverse space and even dense materials. Thus, any attempt at forming life would see its cells damaged every second. It's a scenario where survival is not only a miracle, but a probability close to zero, especially for complex life forms. Young giant stars. Giant and young stars are like rock stars, intense, full of energy, but short-lived. They burn their fuel quickly, releasing massive amounts of radiation and heat. For any nearby planet, this is synonymous with a deadly environment. Life, if it tries to form, will quickly be annihilated by these constant bursts of energy. Even if a planet manages to arise, it is bound to a brief, tumultuous existence, with no time to develop complex ecosystems. Being close to one of these stars is like living on an active volcano. At any moment, a devastating explosion could occur. And when these stars finally die out, they often explode as supernovas, taking everything around with them. In other words, planets in close orbits are doomed to a short and violent experience, where every second represents a real threat of destruction. It's an environment where the star's energetic intensity gives life no chance to emerge. Metal-poor regions. In the farthest regions of the galaxy, the amount of metals, elements heavier than helium, is very low. These metals are fundamental to forming complex, resource-rich planets like Earth. Without them, what we have are planets more like gas balls or simple materials, incapable of supporting a solid surface where life can develop. It's like trying to build a house with only straw. Without solid materials, there is no chance of building something durable and structured. The presence of metals is what allows planets to have cores, atmospheres, and tectonic plates, all the things Earth has that make life possible. In the galactic outskirts, however, this metal scarcity makes these planets incapable of sustaining the kind of complexity we see here. For life to evolve, it's essential for these elements to be available, and without them, these planets are merely shadows of what could have been, lacking the structural richness we see in our home. Habitable zone versus death zone. While the fatal zone is a constant battlefield where life has no place, the galactic habitable zone is like an oasis in the galactic desert. There, the stars are calmer, radiation is moderate, and conditions allow stable planets like Earth to form. It's a safe belt, distant from frequent supernovas, black holes, and intense radiation, where life has a chance to flourish and evolve without being constantly threatened by destructive forces. The comparison between these zones is almost like comparing a peaceful neighborhood with a war zone. One environment offers safety and stability, while the other offers no respite. The habitable zone is the place where favorable conditions align, enabling ecosystems to thrive and life to diversify. The fatal zone, on the other hand, will never allow such evolution, as it is dominated by phenomena that extinguish any form of life that tries to settle there. These galactic extremes demonstrate how the universe can be both welcoming and relentless. Speaking of survival in space, have you ever imagined what would happen if someone removed their helmet in space? If that intrigues you, the latest video on the channel answers that question and shows in detail what would happen to the human body in such a hostile environment. So, don't forget to watch, and of course, subscribe and turn on notifications to continue discovering the mysteries of the universe with us. After all, there's much more waiting to be explored.